I'm Commander Shepard, and Mike is my favorite bird-like hybrid on the Citadel. And This Week in Geek is my favorite podcast on the Citadel. And you're listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Who disrupts my coronation?
Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame fest party!
What's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net, going continuously since 2007. I am your host, Mike the Birdman, and Happy New Year as we welcome you into this wonderful year of hopefully less insanity and nuttiness than 2021, 2022. I'm crossing my fingers now. Let's see how that goes. But I'm joined by my epic co-host from the wonderful city of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada.
Alex, the producer.
So yes, it is nice to be back here on the show. The last time you heard our voices was probably the Christmas special that we did.
Well, they would have heard me when I put out the
Loose Cannon, right?
Well, there's the Loose Cannons that I recorded prior to the Christmas break with Aaron. As well as there was a last minute Turd or Treasure I put out because there were a couple things that just came in like the day we recorded our like gift guide, and I was like, well, I don't want to wait too long with these, so we put that out. But that's pretty much been it. But that was recorded again ahead of time.
Yeah, so we are back here with fresh new content that will not age like the milk in the back of your fridge. So yeah, it's going to be a big year for content here on the show. I know we say that each and every year, but things are going to be changing up a little bit. Alex will be taking a little bit of time off to do some other things and other projects. So like you're still going to hear him on Future Imperfect, Loose Cannon, but you'll hear me more often as I'm starting to get my schedule kind of figured out, as I'm going to be graduating school in April of this year, but I also have my volunteer schedule kind of figured out because I do a lot of volunteering in my community right now, and the Guelph Storm season will be wrapping up hopefully at the Memorial Cup, but you know, we'll wait and see. So it's going to be busy times, but as we most often do, we talk about what we have done over the little bit, and since we got a little bit of time here, I guess the big news is, if you've been following my social medias, which is at Birdman across all major social platforms, we have a couple of new kittens that we got just after Dr. Wiley passed away. We have Beaker and Dutch. Beaker is the little orange boy. His name was originally going to be Goku, but Blair convinced me, and you know what, Beaker, it works. He's a crazy wild man.
And let's be honest, you've got to name every other one.
Yes, this is true. And then Dutch was named by my sister Shannon, and he is named after the character in Predator.
And you know how confusing it would be to have a cat named Goku with how many times that name comes up in regular conversation?
It's true. It is so exceptionally true.
Like I know that's nerdy, but like in your household, the word Goku either on television or being said by us to the point where it would be cruel to the cat. He's like, why do you keep calling for me but not talking to me? So it makes a little more sense to go with something a little less likely to be said outside of actually calling them.
Yes, this is true. So we've had these guys since the first week of December. They've been doing tremendously well, acclimatizing really, really, really well. I'll be posting more pictures up on TikTok and socials over the next couple of weeks because these guys are growing fast. And it's just been a wonderful time. I actually took a picture of Beaker a couple of weeks ago in his Guelph Storm gear. He slept inside my toque one night, and I because I'm that fan, I went to the Guelph Storm store and I bought him a baby onesie, And he sleeps in it. He likes his little Storm jersey. So on nights that I'm watching games from home, we'll put him in his little onesie, and he seems to like it, and he goes to sleep. So,
well, like I've seen them twice now,
mhm.
and every time they're growing so fast.
Yeah, like you really have to treasure the time when they're kittens because it happens so fast. And I was saying this to Blair. I mean, nobody's ever going to replace Dr. Wiley, but Beaker and Dutch both take turns sleeping on my stump. Dutch likes to kiss up my nose. He likes to sit on my shoulder. Actually, Beaker likes to go for wheelchair rides now. So that's his little thing.
And it's not about replacing. It's about a different great experience.
Yeah, it's a different bonding experience, like having cats so young.
It is obviously weird. It feels weird. Like if I visit you and I'm like, where's my boy? I'm like, oh, my boy's not there anymore. That part feels weird. But what all feels great is my boy's not there, but my boys are now there.
Exactly. And like now they're starting to learn and bond. They're getting closer with Ayla. She's still a little persnickety, but she is learning.
She's a persnickety cat to begin with. She goes through phases where 2 or 3 years she loves me, and then decides she doesn't want to talk to me anymore.
She's like that ex-girlfriend and ex-friend that just kind of ghosts you after a while.
But then gets jealous when other cats are giving you attention.
Yeah, it's weird. Other than that, though, over my holiday break, I went to a lot of Storm games here, and this is something that I think I've never lost that childlike sense of wonder. So my friend Jordan, who runs the Guelph Storm Trackers fan club, they sell buttons of some of the guys that are on the team, like being some of the new guys, some really popular guys. And because I have never made anything like a button before, I was like, hey, dude, how do you do this? And he showed me the machine that does it.
Oh, like those
presses.
The metal tin buttons.
Yeah.
Where it pops them on and wraps the metal around it.
Yeah. And I was like, this is really fun. So I made like 80 one night and I put it up on TikTok, but I'm terrible with my camera angles. So yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. Blair, my sister Kara, and my friend Kelly came to a Storm game last week, actually. And it was just a tremendous night. We beat the Erie Otters. One of our guys got a hat trick. That entire arena was popping. It was just so much fun. And it's just been a great time here in Guelph. Plus, one of the other things I've been doing recently is I've been volunteering with my local food bank. You may have seen that on socials as well. And I haven't told this story. Actually, I haven't even told kind of you this yet. So yesterday I was downtown playing Pokemon Go. And I went to go grab lunch from a Chinese place that's really, really, really cheap. And this gentleman approaches me. He's like, hey, you're that nice young man from the food bank. I'm like, yeah, hi. And he's like, hey, do you have any hockey tickets? I'm like, well, not on me, but I can help you out because at Chalmers, we occasionally give out hockey tickets to go to the Storm game. And we started talking for a couple minutes. He's like, thank you for being just such a polite young man who really wants to help out. I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, it's kind of what I do. That's sort of my jam. And he's like, just thank you for being you. And it was just a really good, heartwarming experience. And I've had a few people stop me on the street going, hey, you're that guy from TikTok. Keep it up. And it's just been really good. So I'm really looking forward to doing some stuff in 2023. And then finally, before I throw things to Alex, if you've been reading the Guelph Mercury, I think it's guelphmercury.com. I have a couple of newspaper articles on there as I'm now a reporter there. So I write a couple of articles a week. I'm working on 3 or 4 articles right now. Those should be out in the coming weeks. I'm trying to get a pretty big interview. I'm going to start reaching out to agents tomorrow, and we're going to see how that's going to pan out. And final thing, I was going to play a lot of video games during my break, and I kind of did. I played some Dragon Quest XI, which is friggin' fantastic. I played a lot of Dragon Ball. But I finally finished Dragon Ball Super, all 130-something episodes and the movies. Now I'm ready for Dragon Ball Super to come out on Blu-ray in just a few months. Man, what a ride that was. That was fun, and I'm so glad I finally did that. And I finished House of the Dragon. God, I hate the wigs. Over to you, Alex.
Well, firstly, I've got to say, welcome to the challenging anime run club. Call me when you want to do something with like, I don't know, 4 or 5 or 600 episodes.
So when I'm ready to tackle Bleach or Naruto or One Piece or
Yeah.
some shit.
No, One Piece is hard mode. Like that's like nightmare mode, because that's like 1,000 episodes and none of it makes any sense and none of it's in English.
Oh,
so that's like the Dark Souls of of anime runs. Do like Fairy Tail. It's like 328. You can do that.
okay.
I did it in a week and I was hallucinating and having crazy dreams. But to get prepped for that RPG that came out. But anyway, my holiday break was spent pretty sick.
Oh God, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I got the flu, something fierce. It was not COVID because I did a lot of tests and it was never COVID. It was the regular yearly shitty flu. And it hit me something fierce because it was combined with some of the medications I'm on, which was making me like already tired and having tummy troubles. And I was like, so for like a week and a half, I was basically zonked out of the world. I had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, because like I barely heard from you like during like the week just after Christmas.
I basically crapped like my body weight in crap.
Oh God.
No, I mean, it's great for the weight loss plan to lose like 9 pounds in a week because you're just so dehydrated, but it's not great for, general health.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, so outside of that, like I had watched a few things for review, but I didn't really get as much done as I was hoping. I was trying to play games stuff, but like when you're not feeling well and you can't really focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally feel that.
It was kind of like that. So I mean, I did some gaming here and there. I started playing Dragon Quest 11 like you, just to futz around and refresh my memory. I did play a couple games that I beat, but for the life of me, I can't.
I think you
draw the names.
I think you beat Star Wars, didn't you? Jedi Outcast.
Oh, that's right. Fallen Order.
Fallen Order. That's it. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. I beat Fallen Order, which I really liked. That's right. I did that right before I got sick. And what else did I play? I played that, and I think I attempted a couple other games where I was just like, you know what? These are not for me. You know what I mean? Like where you're like, you know what? I gave them a fair shake. I'm not going to say which ones they were because there was like 5 or 6 that I popped on, and I was like, nope. Oh yeah. For Christmas, I got Sonic. That was terrible. And then I got the Tactics Ogre. Was it Reborn or Remade? Whatever it was. Interface and controls are not up to snuff. Good tactical game, but just
not you.
It's not there, man. It's not at the level it needs to be. I don't get the praise for it. And I'm the big RPG tactical guy, right? So, but Sonic is so bad. People that are fans of it are blind to like they're, like some people are so happy just to get a Sonic game that they don't care if it's bad, or they'll deny that it's bad. It's bad. And I'm like a casual to like somewhat Sonic fan, like, and it just controlled like a nightmare. But anyway, outside of that, I have for Christmas and then a little bit for my birthday last year too, was slowly piecing together equipment that I could use to try to start streaming. So I did a test run yesterday, actually. I figured out some of the kinks in my setup. I'll eventually have to get a different video card because AMD hardware encoding is kind of crap compared to the others. And I don't have like the CPU to really punch through software encoding. Like you've seen, you're the guy that watches a lot more streaming than I do. And like when things get pixelated and that, it's like, oh, it's clearly because the bit rate's too low or whatever. But I did think I worked out the kinks, and after we were done with the show here, and after The Last of Us premieres, which I'll be watching tonight, I'm probably going to hop on and start streaming more. I got about 25% of the way through Final Fantasy 1 on the Pixel remaster.
Oh wow!
And I'm probably going to get through another, maybe at least one more of the Fiends. And for anybody listening, like technical wise, I'm a pretty technical guy, but I don't think that there's really a great guide out there like in one specific space on how to get OBS running and working. It's sort of like you figure out through osmosis or you find a bunch of random videos, but I think I got it down pat. I found a few settings that should boost my visual quality by about 20 to 40%, and that will help with any pixelation that was happening. And then it's time to save up for a video card, because my AMD card is actually pretty good. It's just not tuned great for streaming, but I've got it sort of worked out. I did the whole PNG tuber thing where you get like a little like avatar of yourself, and you can make it look like it's talking and moving. Very simplistic one that I could pop in the bottom right corner. I put our logo in the top left corner. I've made some intro videos out of 1,000 different retro video game commercials that I put filters on. So like I haven't, finished my whole scene creation yet where it's going to auto transition in, but I've got it together so that when I start the stream, just to get it all running and make sure it's working, I can play a randomized video list of old commercials. And then, 3 or 4 minutes in, I'm able to go, okay, I'm ready to go. And I transfer it over, and I'm all set up with a 2-screen setup. How I did it last night was I had a portable monitor on my bed where I'm watching it on there. And then the big screen on the wall has the OBS open with the chat open, so I can see if anybody pops in. And I mean, it's sort of a Frankenstein setup, but it's kind of neat because I can just sort of relax and play this way. Or I can go out to the office in the living room where I have the 2 monitors and the proper setup, and set it up with a webcam and do it that way if I want to. But still, it's going to be fun experimenting. My plan is to try to do a little more streaming throughout the year. It'll be retro JRPGs because those are easy to stream. And you don't have to worry about latency or anything. And plus, there's a lot that I've never actually played. And then I will also be streaming probably some new games, either ones that we get for a review that have streaming guidelines that we're allowed to do. So you might get to see some stuff pre-release from us in some cases, not for all, but in some cases, as well as, I guarantee you, I'm doing this. I pre-ordered Final Fantasy 16 and digitally. So I'll get it like the midnight or maybe even early. And I will stay up, late into the morning or whatever, go to bed and during the day, and I will start streaming at 12:01 a.m. and we will go until I pass out, which could be somewhere between 16 and 20 hours. So I might do a marathon stream at some point. But yeah, so that's sort of the plan. I wanted to do something different this year and something to expand our horizons a little bit. It'll be on my Twitch, but it'll also be posted over into a playlist on the This Week in Geek YouTube page for all the records in the future. You can always go back and watch it that way.
Yeah. All right.
And that's that. And the only other thing was, should I tell the funny story?
Let's save that till the end of the show.
Yeah, we'll do it at the end of the show. That makes sense because it's a funny story.
All right, there, guys. So we have a lot to talk about this week here on the show. We are going to be talking about some of the latest releases from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment, Sony Entertainment, and who's the other one from?
Film Chest.
Film Chest. All right, cool. So we are going to be looking at Lyle, Crocodile, Black Adam, and a movie called Blonde. We will be talking about all those and more right here on This Week in Geek. We have a lot to talk about this week because we have a big D20 shaped elephant in the room and we got to talk about it. So we will be back, guys, right after this. But before we do, let's meet our newest friend, Lyle, Crocodile. We'll be back, guys, right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Lyle, Crocodile. Our friends over at Sony Pictures and Columbia Pictures sent a review copy of the Blu-ray. The Blu-ray includes the Blu-ray, DVD, and digital edition. And this came in just shortly before Christmas. We're technically reviewing this during our Christmas break hiatus. It was one that I ended up watching with family here while we are in the middle of our vacation. And it's a lot better than I was expecting. To be honest, I am not, as everybody who's listened to our programs before knows, I am not the largest, biggest musical fan in the whole TWIG family. There's very, very few that I like outside of Disney ones, like the classic Disney movies, as well as I liked Sing as a modern one. I also liked Pick a Destiny. I'm very, very, very choosy in what I like. I usually find them to be cringy or boring. And I went, you know what? I'm going to challenge myself and watch this because this is a family picture. It's rated G. And I went, okay, let's watch. And the basic premise is a magician showman played by Javier Bardem. ends up finding a crocodile that can sing. You know, it's obviously all CG. Doesn't talk, but it can understand human speech. He can interact with people. He can walk on two legs, and he just loves music and loves to sing. And eventually, what ends up happening is he sort of becomes part of adopts into this family, and it becomes this journey of acceptance. There's an evil, crotchety neighbor who is trying to kick them out of the building, and it's good family, family friendly villainy and fun. Nothing over the top, like as far as scary for the kids or anything. The acting is actually quite solid. The singing is great throughout, and I found myself smiling pretty much ear to ear as I was watching the whole thing. And at the end of it, I left the film thinking, hey, this is a lot better. Like, I could see myself watching it again, which is kind of funny because, like I said, I'm not a big musical fan. But I found this had the right amount of charm. This is a very charming film. It's not going to be, like, considered, like, the best of all time or anything, but it is a very charming, fun, family-friendly film that I think pretty much everybody can get into. You'd have to be a pretty big sourpuss to not like this movie. And, as far as special features are, there's some sing-along songs included on it. There's a segment called Story Time featuring Shawn Mendes, who is the singing voice of Lyle. There's some bloopers, deleted scene, and a bunch of creation stuff and some music videos. So it's got enough features here. As far as the visual quality, it is a pretty stellar release. No macro blocking or compression artifacts or issues. And obviously the audio mix is fantastic. It's great in surround. It's also good with headphones on. It is on DVD. It's a pretty good print. It didn't seem like it was just slapped together. It's actually pretty decent. And then, of course, digitally, you're going to get a pretty good print of it as well, because Sony and Columbia Pictures are generally pretty good with their transfers for their digital copies as well. So it's a pretty solid release. If you are looking for something just to add to your family collection, or if you're a big musical fan, or even if you're not, but you just like some family musicals, this is a definite watch. It's a watch for sure, and a buy if you like musicals. And I can't really give it any other higher praises, because this is the highest praise I usually will give any musical, and I just think it's actually a fine film. And I hope that you didn't sleep on it, and that if you did, it's really worth going to check out. Like, pick it up on Amazon or go to Walmart, and I don't think you'll be disappointed whatsoever.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek.
All right, guys, welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman. He's Alex, the producer. All right, so we got a couple stories to talk about this week. One of them is going to be kind of two stories, but they are related. But let's start off with the smaller one, though. By no means is it any lesser. This one comes courtesy of GameDeveloper.com. Ubisoft cancels 3 unannounced games amidst sales slump. French developer Ubisoft has recently canceled a trio of unannounced games per the company's press release. The game's cancellation comes as the company has had, quote, surprisingly slower sales during the holiday season. These cancellations are part of a planned reduction in cost amounting to $214 million USD over the next 2 years. Ubisoft's reduction will involve, quote, targeted restructuring, diversifying some non-core assets, and usual natural attrition. The company is facing a major challenges as the industry continues to shift towards mega brands and long-lasting titles that can reach players across the globe, across platforms and business models, wrote Ubisoft. However, the games from this investment phase have yet to be released, while our recent launches have not performed as well as expected. Ubisoft's newest string of cancellation comes after 4 games were canceled, including Splinter Cell VR, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Frontline. At this time, Ubisoft has attributed these games to end its more uncertain economic environment, end quote. For Ubisoft, 2022 was a relatively slow year in terms of releases, the highlights being Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Extraction in January, Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope in November, to Ubisoft's surprise, the latter game underperformed towards the end of 2022 and in early January, as did fellow November game Just Dance 2023. Other big games from the company include such as Assassin's Creed Mirage and Avatar Frontiers of Pandora were pushed back to 2023-2024 during that 2023-2024 period. Ubisoft plans to release another, quote, large premium AAA game that's currently unannounced and other premium and free-to-play titles. Additionally, Ubisoft's long-in-development pirate game Skull and Bones has been delayed again from the present March 9th release case to a window within early 2023, early 2024. Now, I'd heard they had, quote, a strike team in Singapore working on Skull and Bones, and there were problems.
The big problem with it,
Mm-hmm.
Internal documents were leaked by internal testers. There's 10 hours of gameplay, and then the game doesn't have an end game.
Oh.
So it's a multiplayer game with a big single player campaign, or that was the idea, but there's no end boss. There's no end. Like, they're like, it's over. It's an Anthem situation where it's over and there's a grind, but nothing to grind for.
So they need to develop some kind of an end game content sort of thing.
For a game that's been in development nearly 10 years, there's nothing to it.
Yeah, because Skull and Crossbones originally came out as like an offshoot of Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, because the naval part was so much fun, and I would play it.
And it was supposed to be this big narrative game, and the talk is it's just not there. Like, where? And the question is, why? Like, you can't blame it on the pandemic, because this game was in development for 4 years before that.
Yeah, so where's all this money going? Like, where are the narrative designers? Like,
what happens is you start a brand new studio in a foreign country who's never made a game before, and then you give them a little oversight, but then they don't know how to make a game. So what happens is every year you look at it and it's like, you're doing 4 years work to get done what 1 year should take for another studio that's experienced.
I was just thinking, you know what? Hearing all these delays and stuff that's announced or unannounced, maybe we'll see Beyond Good and Evil 2 before we see fucking Skull and Crossbones at this point.
Oh, I guarantee that game's done. That's one of the canceled games that they're not announcing, or they don't want to.
Or maybe the Prince of Persia kind of remake.
It's some of it was unannounced titles that were canceled, but then I think some of it is these are in dire straits, and they're so worried because, like, you should not announce a game if you don't think it can be completed. And if they thought it could be completed and then still after like 8 years don't have anything ready to show, then that was massive mismanagement.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, you're showing off games that aren't to the scale of Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto 5 or whatever. Those games require, like, anything that Rockstar puts out does require 5 to 6 years of development time.
Or in some cases, they might have already been technically working on the newest GTA for like 6 or 7 years, but it's because they actually have a scale at which they know, like this, they don't do things like Star Citizen where they just keep taking money and the scope keeps getting bigger and bigger. They have their scope in mind, and they go, okay, well, we know how popular our games are right now. We know that we have like a 7-year curve before the games fall off in popularity. Let's plan for it. If you have a really good project management team, you can do a 7 or 8 year development cycle and not have to force people into crunch or anything, and have a really polished title come out. It's becoming increasingly rare for a studio to be able to do that. That's not a Sony studio.
I mean, like, looking at the roster of what Ubisoft can put out, I mean, like, I think Valhalla had a really good life cycle, and that game is huge and wonderful. Far Cry, okay, let's get this out of the way. I love Far Cry 6. Season 1's DLC was honestly not bad. You got to play as Voss, you got to play as the bad guys from 5 and 4. Okay, cool, whatever, but it turned it into roguelites.
But Far Cry 6's story, like, I mean, you can say that the gameplay style is stale, and that's what I think that they're terrified of, is they built their entire company in the last 12 years or so off of making the same playground for every game. And they would shoehorn that into whatever other gameplay styles they were doing. Like the idea was, here is the base and everything works like this. And when they started to see that the press, by the time like Far Cry 5 came out, the press was saying, this is stale, we don't like this. The problem was they didn't take that as an indication that the audience would do the same, that the actual paying customers would. They just thought, oh, it's the press being snobby. Far Cry 6 comes out, and the sales for all their games start going down, and regular communications with regular fans are starting to say, all of your games are the same.
Well, yeah, and
they're like, oh no, and it started to translate to poorer sales, and they're like, oh shit. And the worst part was when Ubisoft goes, we didn't see this coming. How come we didn't see this coming? Because you didn't listen.
Yeah,
and I liked Far Cry 6. I like the story in it, but I'll tell you, Far Cry 7 is the same exact style of game with the exact same idea. You can have the bases, you can have it, but if it's the exact same thing again, our reviews are not going to be the same as they were for the last several titles, because you can't keep doing the same game over and over again.
Yeah, and like I think the advantage Far Cry 6 had over the other Far Cry games is Danny Rojas was a likable protagonist. The problem is you didn't have nearly enough story for as long as that game was. I mean, I kept playing it week after week because I was grinding all the missions to get the extra weapons.
There's 1 hour of cutscenes and story for like a 40-hour game.
Yeah, and as much as I like Giancarlo Esposito as the bad guy,
wasn't in it enough.
Yeah, he wasn't in it enough, and that really sucks. And the girl who plays Danny, she's way stronger than the male protagonist. And
I forgot there was a male protagonist.
That's right. And the newest DLC for that game has you fighting fucking aliens and doing this roguelike shit. And this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion. Stop giving me roguelites. I don't like them.
No, and you know what? There are plenty of people that do like them, but you know what? It's the people that like them are the most vocal people on the internet. If you actually look at the roguelite sales, it's a tenth of the general population that actually like that. But you know what? I don't mind. If they want to make a roguelite game, like roguelike or roguelite, either style, or they want to make a soul style, go ahead and do that. But you don't have to, like, you should not be shoehorning it into every game.
Yeah, like
because that's the new hotness.
Yeah, like not every game is going to be Hades. Not every game is going to be Elden Ring or Sekiro or whatever. And there's a segment for those games, and Elden Ring performed very well. So did Sekiro, so did Hades. But you're not going to be able to sell those games to a core casual audience. Those attract a very vocal but very large niche at the same time. And I realize what I just said was a contradiction, but they're very vocal.
It's what Final Fantasy used to be like.
Yeah.
Like, you know, back in the day, you'd be like, oh, I play Final Fantasy. They'd be like, you play RPGs? What's, like, you nerd? And now, like, what people that play like Elden Ring and that, they don't realize it's the dude bro, like, it's become like the Madden.
Yeah,
right?
It's like the whole get good bullshit.
And it's and we don't have to go off on the tangent about accessibility. Ubisoft's been pretty good with their accessibility.
Fantastic.
In fact, they outside of what Sony's been doing with their studios, they're probably the market leaders for third-party companies.
100%. Like, Ubisoft very rarely drops the ball when it comes to making sure, hey, you can come play this no matter what your skill level. We want you to play. Like,
well, skill level or dexterity, physical ability.
Yeah. 100%.
They are quite good. So, like, we're not shitting on them for that. Like, it's these unannounced games. Like, I worry, what does this mean for the reboot
of Splinter Cell?
Of Splinter Cell. That they've shown off. Like, they were very, now they might be like, if they're banking on some of these and they're making it like the traditional style, great. But look at their upcoming lineup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we covered Ubisoft games because, you know, and they would give us review codes and everything, and you know, we cover everything fairly, but we only covered like one or two titles in the whole year because they had nothing come out.
Yeah, we had Rainbow Six Extraction, which I didn't like, and they gave me Just Dance 2023 a day or two before we recorded Holiday Gift Guide. I can't review that in 24 hours.
I received Sparks of Hope like a month after it came out. Which usually we got them ahead of time. Like, there had been miscommunications or issues in their whole chain of of everything, because whatever. But like, you'd think that they would have wanted more reviews out of that game. It's great, but when we talk about how poor sales were, I did just a quick look. Not all the sales numbers are available to the public for North America and Europe and that, but Japan. Now, Japan has traditionally been a bit xenophobic when it comes to outside studios, anybody outside of Japan making a Japanese game or what they would consider to be a Japanese property like Mario. The only exception has been how well they've accepted. I think actually, I don't even know if Retro Studios. I don't know if Metroid Prime did well there, but like Donkey Kong Country and that Rare, they were happy with them back in the day. They sold well in Japan, but they traditionally will, as like a culture, shun things that are not made there. And like they'll like American games, they'll like Mass Effect and that, but they won't like an American company making a Final Fantasy, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And Kirby, which is one of the least selling properties of their first party titles, right? Kirby's Forgotten Land that came out in was it March or whatever? Its opening week sold 400,000 copies on Switch. One of the biggest openings for a Kirby game ever. They sold less than 17,000 of Sparks of Hope.
That sucks, because I hear that game was tremendously good.
It's better than the first game. The studio in Spain that made it was super polished. It had that you would not know that it wasn't made by first party Nintendo. But the fact that it only sold 17,000 there, and they love their RPGs and strategy games, and it's Mario, right? And it's not, if the argument is, it's Rabbids, the Rabbids were such a small part of it, less than in the first game. And there was marketing and everything. The fact that it sold so little for Christmas there, and that was the first week sales. I think it's like life to date sales is less than 100,000 in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and Kirby is traditionally their least selling property, and Kirby sold 400,000. That tells you, if it sold like that there, that means it probably only sold like 1 million worldwide.
Didn't Ubisoft last year put out that Riders Republic last year too?
No, that's 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years.
Jesus Christ! See, that's the thing. Like, these years are all starting to blend together.
There was that roller skating free to play thing.
Oh yeah.
But really, like, no. Last year was the last thing we received for review before the big gigantic hiatus when all the stuff was happening with them was we got Scott Pilgrim,
which was fantastic. But I don't hear anybody talking about it. In fact, I think it's free on. It was a PlayStation Plus game fairly quickly.
Probably. And what do they have coming right now? If we know for sure that has a date or anything. Well, Mirage is coming, and they're not even pricing that at a full price game, so that means it's going to be short. Like, and I know that that's supposed to be like Assassin's Creed Mirage is going to be a return to the more linear gameplay style of the first two games,
Mm-hmm.
or first three, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, cool, if they want to bring up the fidelity, bring it up. But what worries me is when it's $49.99 instead of $79.
Yeah, you have to wonder what got cut. Basically, what's the plan?
Is it like, if it's a 10-hour game for that price? Okay, I can get it, but I would like to know why they're pricing it there if it's supposed to be a flagship title. The Prince of Persia remake that was again handled by a studio in India, their first game, and they just didn't know what they were doing, had to be pulled back in-house into Ubisoft. I think Montreal or Quebec City, I think, is working on it, and they had to panic and redo it from basically scratch. So we don't know when that's coming out. Skull and Bones keeps getting pushed. Skull and Bones it might be the worst selling game they ever put out. And the crazy thing is, I know that if you get a review copy, you're probably going to love it because you love the naval battle stuff. But I know a bomb when I hear it. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh my God, like, because I do like a lot of the Ubisoft titles. We don't know what they're going to be like. This is going to be a very tumultuous year. My biggest fear is that they get bought out by like Tencent or something.
Yeah, that I wouldn't
like a Chinese company buys them, and then they just basically become a wing of the Chinese government making like monetization games left and right. That's all they do for like forever, and we lose any property, any good IP that they have to the winds of time for all of eternity.
Honestly,
right? It's like, oh God, it's like, come on, Sony, pick them up, or
Microsoft.
I can't say Microsoft because they're already like they're already acquiring too much. Like, Embracer, somebody help them, because the mismanagement of the upper tier management and the abusive situations that some of the studios locations have had from middle management shouldn't reflect the downfall of the company based on all of the small not small, but like the lower tier employees that make up the thousands of employees that work really hard and are passionate about this. I fear for them, because what if they are gone? There's like 10,000 employees that are out of work.
Oh yeah, like easily. So we're gonna have to wait and see how this year plays out. I mean, we'll have to.
I'm rooting for a solution for them that means that they can have, they want to have a few money catch games, whatever, fine, but that they can have nice creative properties that actually justify the term an Ubisoft original they always put on top of their games.
Yeah, like,
because there hasn't been a whole lot of originality in any of their titles they put that on recently.
yeah, like I want Splinter Cell, I want Skull and Bones to not suck, I want a really good Assassin's Creed. So we'll see what happens.
What was that other franchise that they had? Not Spec Ops. That was
Warfighter or whatever.
Yeah,
Future Soldier or some bullshit like that.
Yeah, they had that, and I'm trying to think of anything else that, like, we could use some lower budget Rayman games.
Yeah, that'd be great to bring that franchise back.
They should look in their library of games they put out in the 90s and do some quick and dirty, not remasters, but like remakes, but on the Switch. Something that, doesn't have to be super graphically intensive, but like if they, I'm thinking like N64 style titles, right? Like they could do a bunch of those, release them at the $49 price point or $39 price point, get some cash revenue, put out a few Rayman stuff, maybe work out a partnership deal with another company or two and do some crossovers. Like Rabbids was successful for them, initially, with Nintendo. What's stopping them from reaching out to Sony and being like,
Spyro Rabbids?
Well, they don't own that. That's Activision, right?
Oh, right.
But why couldn't they reach out? Why couldn't they reach out and go, we do, well, no, Crash Bandicoot is also Activision. But like Sly Cooper,
yeah, Sly,
or
Ratchet and Clank,
or Ratchet and Clank, or you know what, Little Big Planet featuring Rayman.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Like, have some, like they could do stuff like that to get some crossover appeal, or even reach out to other companies, like have Rayman show up in, like, I don't know, not Smash Brothers, but like,
yeah, why the hell isn't Rayman or the Rabbids in Smash Brothers as like a playable character?
Rayman would be great there, or even like what's the one, Multiverses?
Yeah,
like I know that it's all Warner stuff, but like there's titles like that where you could have him pop up, and like, why not have Rayman sign a deal with Riot or whatever and pop up, or is it Riot or is it Epic, whoever makes Fortnite, have Rayman pop up and have
or Fall Guys,
or have the Rabbids, have the Rabbids invade Fortnite for a day where they're like causing havoc on the screen.
Yeah,
like how you're going in there, you're trying to build your shit and shoot stuff up or whatever and beat the other people, and then randomly a rabbit will come and start knocking down what you've created.
Yeah, I mean, Ubisoft, come on, man, we're the idea factory here.
And I mean, I don't even play those games, but like you think that they should be on the ball of thinking outside of the box. But yeah, anyway, that's just my 2 cents, because I don't want them to go away completely, but there has to be some massive changes.
100%. Okay, so let's talk about the big D20 sized elephant in the room this week and what this means for us covering Hasbro products. We're just going to say this. It's not the creators and the writers and authors of these books that we've got a problem with. It's the business practices. So
very specifically the C-level employees, like the executives at the very top.
Yeah. So you spend your money how you want to spend your money. You decide with your wallet. I'll tell you if the next adventure's any good. Okay. So this story comes courtesy of comicbook.com.
Because we'll preface this, that speaking with your wallet and stopping purchasing completely from these creators, it hurts the creator more, because guess who gets fired first?
Yeah, it's not the so-and-so at top.
Your book didn't sell. You're not worth it to us. Goodbye.
Yeah. So
that's and we don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. So this story comes courtesy of comicbook.com, but there's a fantastic video you should watch by Legal Eagle over on YouTube. Go watch that. So Dungeons and Dragons releases statement on new OGL retracts royalties and license back language. Wizards of the Coast has released a new statement about their new open game license, stating their intent to remove some of the most controversial components.
should we preface it by explaining what that was in the first place?
Okay. So long story short, the open game license allowed third-party publishers to create content for certain Wizards of the Coast games. For the best example of this is Paizo, when they created Pathfinder and anything compatible with that. And then now with the system resource document, or the SRD, that allowed certain companies to produce 5th edition related content.
So basically, they made a unified rules system based on the rules that would be the copyrightable material within Dungeons and Dragons. And this is about 20 years ago, maybe a little over 20 years ago, when, from what I understand, the 90s was very dark for Dungeons and Dragons in the sales of. Was it Advanced 3rd Edition or 3.5 was not selling well?
No, that was Advanced 2nd Edition. 3 and 3.5 didn't come in until about the mid 2000s or very late.
That was 4 was in the 2000s.
Yeah, 4 was in the 2000s, and there was a different document which was the open game license, which people quote found draconian to produce any content for.
Yeah, so regardless, they created the idea was the masterminds behind it was, hey, we're in a slump. We're having trouble. Nobody even wants to work with us to make books for us because we're just not selling it. We're not paying enough either. If we make this document that anybody can use to use our rules, but they can't use our copyrighted material, like you can't use, our exact wordings of things. You can't use all of our spells, but the mechanics, the actual way to play it, and the mathematics and the logic behind it, you can use this document. You have to state that we're using this document as a basis, but it makes whatever campaign or game or even entirely new game that somebody makes compatible with the rules. So if you already know Dungeons and Dragons, it means you'll be able to play this game as well. And it was made in such a way that it was royalty free. Anybody could do it. You basically just had to say, we're using this rule set from this. It's compatible with X edition of this game. And that's how you could go out there, and you had all these mom and pop shops or mom and pop businesses making their own splat books and
adventure
their own campaigns
paths and everything.
And it's and and we're not talking licensed stuff like somebody might license it and be like Ninja Turtles, but it would be something like you know what Dungeons and Dragons doesn't have an ancient China setting. I'm going to make an ancient China setting, and we're going to adapt the rules to this. That's how you got that. Or if somebody were to say, I want to base I like Dungeons and Dragons, but I want to make it more realistic, and we're going to base it on 14th century France. Well, you could make that 14th century France book, and you wouldn't have to worry about the rules because the rules were already there. So you could do that in perpetuity, royalty free, yada yada yada. And what they've done now, or what they did now, is somebody within Wizards of the Coast leaked an internal document because they knew it was terrible, of a draft that was going to go live at some point. That was going to alter the rules. So, first of all, we should note that the original was it the original open game license, or what was it called? Open
OGL. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The original version was even stated that it was in perpetuity, and they then said now it's not in perpetuity. And by the way, everything from the past is void. And if you make over a certain amount of money on your books or properties, you have to give us a 25% or more of your gross profits, meaning before you've paid your taxes and paid everybody else. So you could actually lose money you could release a book, sell, or get like 300,000 or get $1 million in profit, or what you think $1 million in sales, have to give them 250 grand before you pay anybody else and before you pay the printers, and then find out you only made like $3 grand out of all of that.
Yeah.
And it stated that they would own the right to use your property and reprint it whenever they want without giving you money.
Yeah. So
basically stuff that is actually illegal, but they had their lawyers go over it and word it in such a way that they thought they could get away with it.
Yeah.
Because a mandate came down from, I think it's Cynthia something or other, the new CEO of
I actually have
Wizards.
I actually have the exact quote. Let me pull it up here. So she said, and I quote,
she came from what world? She was an executive, was it from Disney or somebody?
So she said, quote, "The D&D brand is under monetized. We want to unlock the type of recurrent spending we see in video games. end quote. So they want to make money on microtransactions.
Well, not just that, they wanted to make it so that you have, what it basically was saying there is that what they want to do is turn D&D, they want to get rid of physical books. That's it, the writing's on the wall. They want to get rid of physical books, and they want to make you have to pay a monthly fee to access them online.
Which is what this whole D&D 1 thing is supposed to be in the next year or two.
And nobody is going to do that.
Yeah.
Nobody.
In fact, before I get into the main story here, so many people, one of the big D&D online personalities had said, cancel your D&D Beyond subscriptions. It got so bad, Hasbro servers crashed. So that's the background. There were other things involved in the licensing there. They tried to make it so initially, if you ran, Terrible Warriors or our Cambridge Chronicles, if you ran D&D campaigns and you ended up making any sponsorship money, they tried to make it so that if you made over a certain amount, like we were not going to make $1 million, right? That threshold. But if we had, they would try to take the money from you creating your own campaigns, and they'd have the right to take, let's say we made the Cambridge Chronicles, we built our own world. Mm-hmm. They would have the right to own the creative property that we made up on the spot. And then on top of that, sue us if we tried to publish a book based on our property after they publish their own version. Yeah. So,
and it's like that's, how many RPG fans and RPG writers would have gone up into the bell tower and been aiming at her for that.
Yeah, it got pretty nutty. So I'm going to read the story here. So Wizards of the Coast has released a new statement about the new open game licensing, stating their intent to remove some of the most controversial components of the proposed new legal framework. Today, Wizards of the Coast issued a new statement about their plans about the open game license, which provided a legal framework that allowed third-party publishers to make D&D compatible material. The statement comes a full week after leaked drafts of the OGL were published online, which revealed a stifling royalty structure for larger publishers and controversial license-backed language granting Wizards a perpetual license to use material published under the new OGL. While Wizards of the Coast did not release a new OGL for the public to view, it did confirm the legitimacy of the leaked drafts in a statement released earlier today. While it defended those drafts as documents intended for feedback, Wizards also stated the final version of the new OGL would not contain several of the most controversial aspects of the earlier drafts, including a royalty structure or back license language. Quote, the new OGL will contain the provisions that allow us to protect and cultivate the inclusive environment we are trying to build and specify it covers only content for TTRPGs, Wizards wrote. Quote, that means other expressions such as educational or charitable campaigns, live streams, cosplay, and virtual tabletop users will remain unaffected by any OGL update. Content already released under 1.0a will also remain unaffected. Quote, while it will not contain any royalty structure, Wizards continued, it will also not include the license back provision that some people were afraid was a means for us to steal work. That thought never crossed our minds. Under any new OGL...
Under any bullshit, you're fucking top high paid lawyers. You have they were working on, she was hired in February. This is what she's worked on the whole year with that team.
Yeah.
There is no way they didn't figure it out. Also, think about this, how bad this would have been for PR. You're a charity and you get a bunch of big celebrities like Joe Magliano, those people together, and they raise $1.2 million for a children's hospital. And they have to give $250,000 to them or be sued.
Now, supposedly, I had heard that there were sweetheart deals. Now, this is completely what I've only read online. I cannot verify it, so take this purely with a grain of salt. That certain third-party publishers were offered a sweetheart deal rather than 25%. They were offered something along the lines of 10 to 15.
Shouldn't have to pay a penny.
Yeah,
it's an open game license. It's in the title.
So they
or you know what, open game license, you can use it. If you're a publisher and you're going to print a physical book, or you're going to do something that's not free online or not a charity or pay as you go, you know what they should do then? They should go, okay, how big is your company? Are you a Pfizer or somebody? Okay, you know what, you have a one-time $1,000 fee and you get a license. I know it's not open, but you know what, they'd still make a few $100,000 a year from random people making stuff, but it would stifle a lot of the creativity out there. At the same time, that I don't know what they were thinking.
So the article goes on to say, quote, under the new OGL, you will own the content you create. We won't. Any language we put down will be crystal clear and unequivocal on that point. The license-backed language was intended to protect us and our partners from creators who incorrectly allege that we steal their work simply because of coincidental similarities. As we continue to invest in the game that we love and move forward with partnerships in film, television, and digital games, the risk is simply too great to ignore. The new open game license would contain provisions to address that risk, but we will do it without a license back and without suggesting we have rights to the content you create. Your ideas and imagination are what make the game special. This is where the article picks up. The statement did not address whether the new OGL would attempt to, quote, deauthorize previous versions of the OGL. Wizards had previously told creators they could release material under any version of the OGL, I'll bet using only the system reference document written for those OGLs. By attempting to deauthorize older versions of the OGL, creators would be forced to use the new OGL to make D&D compatible material, locking them into whatever terms and conditions were in the new OGL. It did not state whether Wizards reserved the right to make changes to the OGL or what sort of time frame those changes would be communicated to creators and publishers. Originally released in 2000s, the OGL grow D&D's market share and turned it into the largest tabletop role-playing game to a dominant game system that dwarfed others. When Wizards of the Coast opted for a more restrictive game license system when rolling out D&D 4th Ed, rival publishers such as Paizo continued to use the OGL to publish games such as Pathfinder that competed for market share during the early 2010s. Wizards of the Coast returned to the OGL for 5th edition, releasing the system reference document for 5e, which helped grow the 5e marketplace to its current dominant status. While rumors had swirled for months that Wizards of the Coast and its parent company Hasbro would try to make changes to the OGL, Wizards of the Coast sought to downplay changes to the OGL, although a framework for the changes noted that publishers who make more than $750,000 would pay a royalty fee. A leaked draft of the OGL 1.1 revealed that the royalty structure, 25% of revenue greater than $750,000, along with new language, were about Wizards having additional rights to material published under the OGL. Additionally, Wizards sought to, quote, deauthorize the previous OGLs, which undercut a long-held belief, promoted by Wizards in the past, by the way, that publishers could continue to use older versions of the OGL should a new OGL be released with unfavorable language. The fervor.
So basically, what they were trying to do is, what it would mean is, D&D 6th edition comes out, and it's using this new OGL. Everybody would still be using 5th edition rules because they don't want to pay royalties. And what they don't realize, or what Wizards realized, is that would kill their entire game because nobody else would have compatible games or splat books.
Well, yeah, because like there's always push, like in my experience playing role-playing games since like the mid-90s, nobody wants to be the first person at the table to buy the new system. So if everybody has 3rd edition books,
unless it's we're not talking like brand new game systems. Like if a company comes out with a brand new rule set, brand new game, and that, people are excited to try new things, but nobody wants to go, hey, I'm used to playing, was it like Curse of Strahd game?
Yeah.
Like Curse of Strahd, nobody wants to be like, hey, all of my other books are 5th edition, but I'm going to get that one book at 6th edition. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. And there are sometimes Wizards or whoever would publish books that would allow you to translate your characters to a new system, but more often than not, you'd have to rebuild them from scratch, and it's just a pain in the ass.
And there are entire businesses. If you look on Amazon, and I've been interested in seeing some of them, there are entire companies that publish, looks like high quality books that they'll say like 5e compatible on the bottom. That's what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like there's one that's like Wizard of Oz, and I've seen some, like, because these are in public domain now, some of these old books, right? And I'm like, you know what? Like they're like $30-$40. They're hardcover. I haven't picked any of them up, but I've always wanted to see if anybody's actually played them, because like these are cool ideas. Like, hey, Alice in Wonderland, but 5th edition.
One of the coolest books that I have, I was sent to it by my friends at Green Ronin through a rather weird set of circumstances. I have a new book based upon religions, which is completely 5th edition compatible. So if I want to be a cleric of this new god with new powers and domains, it's completely 5th edition compatible.
And I have seen it's rare now, but I've seen a few of the books where it's like, where it'll say like on it 5th edition and D20 compatible.
Yeah.
and where basically it'll have two sets of rules, side by side in the book, so you can play it with multiple styles.
Yeah, and there is a publisher here in town that publishes a game called Legacy of Mana, and they have 5th edition open game license for Pathfinder. There's one for Savage Worlds, I want to say.
Is that the company that does like the big eye, small mouth one?
No, that's Guardians of Order, which is another company based here in Guelph. So if you want to play an anime themed game, that's in its 4th edition. I haven't played it yet, but
and then there's even there's the Open D6 license. There's a few others that were out there back in the day. Like I do like a simple D6 game now and then, but like this, it was so interesting to me just how fast the backlash was happening with them.
The fact that
and how fervent it is, and people that actually stand to lose money that are that were like ambassadors for them on social media and that are actually probably breaking their contracts by speaking badly about it, because they know that in the long term it's going to hurt their careers to support it. And it's Jesus, heads are going to roll. First of all, whoever leaked the document out is probably done when they find out who did it. And secondly, the CEO, her head's going to roll, because Hasbro can't have this kind of publicity.
No, this is damaging on a level I can't even begin to describe. Now, one interesting wrinkle to this, and then I'll move on to my next story, which is adjacent to this. Will Wheaton, one of the biggest tabletop proponents out there right now,
he's not super, I would say he's not a household name to the general public as much as when Vin Diesel plays a game.
Mm-hmm.
He's him and Magnoliano are known as the dude bros and the casual Entertainment Tonight watchers. When they hear D&D celebrity, they think of those two guys because they're big movie stars that are that. But Will Wheaton is the big nerd cred guy.
Yeah. So he says, and I quote, "If anyone asks my absolute favorite non-D&D RPG system, which I full throttledly endorse, it's Adventure Game Engine from Green Ronin. We used it for Titan's Grave. Titan's Grave is the only actual play podcast I've listened to from start to finish, because I can't fucking stand Critical Role. Come at me, bro."
I can't either, but you know what? You got to admit, that's what's made it mainstream, and that Critical Role has a lot to lose with this, but not just that. Critical Role might have the power on their own to force change, because if Wizards were to lose the Critical Role viewership,
it would be damaging to the
spotlight.
Brand.
They can't afford the marketing that they would need that they get from Critical Role.
Yeah, and the fact that it's now on Amazon Prime as its own animated series, a fantastically successful Kickstarter. D&D is in the mainstream now with Stranger Things. There's Lunchboxes. There's fucking Transformers that I'll be reviewing at some point.
They don't need this press when we're a month and a half away from their movie coming out.
Yeah, and that's supposed to premiere at South by Southwest. I'll be very curious to see what happens then.
There is going to be not mainstream press, because they only do fluff pieces right initially. This is going to affect the movie.
Yes, it will. 100%. So this next story is complementary to it, and this one comes courtesy of Polygon.com. Paizo, who's the publisher of Pathfinder and Starfinder, commits to legal battle against Wizards over the future of Pathfinder in D&D. Paizo, creators of Pathfinder and Starfinder role-playing games, has committed itself to a legal battle against Wizards of the Coast, the publisher of Dungeons & Dragons. In a statement issued late Thursday, the Redmond, Washington-based company announced it would move its products off the open game license, which is expected to be either altered or withdrawn by Wizards in the near future. The OGL was developed and refined to the lead up to D&D's 3rd edition, which has been in place for some 20 years. It's part of the legal framework which creators like Paizo have been able to build their own tabletop companies alongside Wizards and its own brand. In December, Wizards says blah, 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 blah. I'm just trying to find a good point here. Oh, anyway. Okay, so here's the important part of this article. The Open RPG Creative License, also known as the acronym ORC, is currently in development by the Seattle-based Azora Law, a firm which represents Paizo and other allied game publishers. According to Paizo, Azora co-founder attorney Brian Lewis was the attorney at Wizards who came up with the legal framework of the OGL itself. Quote, Paizo will pay for this legal work, the company said. We invite game publishers worldwide to join us in support of this system agnostic license that allows all games to provide their own unique open rules reference document that opens up their individual game systems to the world. The statement goes on to say that no one gaming company will run the org, that it will be up to Azora Law to take ownership of the process and provide stewardship in order to create safe harbor against companies being bought, sold, or changing management in the future and attempting to rescind rights or nullify sections of the license. Ultimately, Paizo concludes, we plan to find a nonprofit with a history of open source values to own this license, such as the Linux Foundation. While Paizo will be footing the bill, other smaller publishers have also lined up behind Orc. Reached for comment, Paizo confirmed to Polygon that Kobold Press, Green Ronin, Legendary Games, Roll for Combat, Rogue Genius Games, and Chaosium have already thrown their support behind the initiative.
Which, if you look now, there might be like we all know Paizo is the number 2,
yes,
like by far. In fact, for a while they were number 1.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue when
Pathfinder always put out more books.
Well, you could argue before 5th edition came out.
Oh, it was all Pathfinder.
Pathfinder for like a good 5-6 years was number 1.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I think it was Starfighter came out right when 5th edition was coming out, so that they were sort of neck and neck.
Mm-hmm.
But so they were number 2. Like they're the only other publishing house and company like that has full-time, like large staff, like, you know what I mean, like more than 10 people working full-time all the time. So they're like a pretty big company in comparison. Third place and fourth place, you can sort of fight it out. There's a bunch of companies you could argue, a whole bunch of different companies like Game Labs and that. But when it comes to ones that specifically also publish stuff based on the SRD, having Chaosium, which is
Call of Cthulhu,
having Chaosium on there and having Green Ronin, they're the 2 biggest and oldest that also publish using the SRD. So having them on board right away. The others are Kobold, that like they're what you would call like mini major indies, whereas the other 2 have like history, 20 or plus history.
Mm-hmm.
They having them immediately sign on board with their rival at Paizo, and they're like, yeah, we're on board to help you develop this. That tells you how pissed everybody is at all the companies.
Oh yeah.
Could you imagine, and we've interviewed people from the different companies, especially Green Ronin. You imagine, you're the head of Green Ronin or you're the head of Chaosium. You wake up in the morning and you have 700 emails and tweets and stuff from people, and they're like, have you seen this? And you're like, oh God, what is it? Your heart would stop.
Paizo reported their website couldn't keep up with demand for people trying to buy 2nd edition after this.
This is what I'm saying. And Paizo has had, like, we're not saying they're saints. They've had some scandals in the past. Some workplace issues, misogyny, stuff that happens a lot with this industry.
Mm-hmm.
But they have made great strides to correct a lot of those issues. From what we've heard, like I remember there was some press, iffy with some of the people, and I believe most of them are gone or shuffled out or whatever. And they've made a lot of great strides when it comes to being good partners for like charity events and stuff, and that. So I can see this working. The idea of creating a nonprofit entity that would be the owner of the rules is a very smart move, because with these companies, we know that with Paizo, all it would take is like 2 or 3 executives to leave some and during a takeover. Like, what if, not Hasbro, let's say what if Mattel says, hey, look what Hasbro's got, and then they buy Paizo, you know what I mean, and then they move out people. This would protect it from having total ownership and going in that same direction.
Like, the fact that so many companies are signing on to Orc and are willing to support it, it wouldn't surprise me if you see other companies jump on, like maybe Freely Publishing, Modiphius, etc.
Well, you see, because these are companies that have their own engine, their own games, but they may want to be a part of it, not to have their, like, they wouldn't put their own engine or like Artel Saurian, and that they're not going to put theirs out that way. But what they might do is they may take, if it becomes an actual nonprofit organization that runs this and keeps the rules running, they can donate to it, obviously, to get tax rebates and everything, but also if they're get in on this from the ground up, like if Art Talsorian or Free League or Modifius get involved, or
Onyx Path,
Onyx Path,
Renegade Game Studio. Well, I guess they can't because they're kind of in bed with Hasbro.
No, they're not.
Oh, right. No, they signed the license.
License the property, their own game engine. Right. So they can get involved. I'm drawing a blank. It's the one that publishes like Morkborg and
Free League.
Not Free League. I'm drawing a blank. It's the one that Justin loves. What's it called? Oh my God, why am I drawing a blank on it? It's the.
I know you can buy it through Free League's website because I get offered it all the time.
It's.
Let me look it up.
Magpie. Is it Magpie?
Hold on. Let me look it up. I think I've got it on my iPad here. Let me look.
Magpie Games. I think it's Magpie.
Let's see. Waiting for it to load. It'll take forever. Sorry. Either way.
Yeah, I think it's Magpie. They make the Avatar game, and they make or. You know what I mean? Like those medium companies, they might want to get on board, and even Fate, like with Evil Hat, even if they don't use the engine currently or the SRD or whatever, being a part of this new union will help because it will maybe give them the incentive to go, okay, we can maybe adapt some of our games to use that, or maybe we'll create new games to use it or whatever. But it's amazingly goodwill and good press that even if Free League doesn't use it, if Free League says, hey, we're donating $50,000 to start up this fund to get it going, to help it, what that does is it goes, hey, look, we are here for the fans. We don't use that engine, but we know a lot of people do. We want to help creatives because you know what? A small, if you and I decided to make a game and then we use this document and it becomes popular, guess who's going to come knocking on our door to say, hey, would you like to write for us?
Mm-hmm.
Where what they were doing is what Wizards of the Coast was doing was saying, basically, hey, you have a dream of being an RPG writer and creator, don't bother because we're going to fuck you. And and for the fact that they couldn't see that, so Paizo and all these companies, like, this is the smartest move they could have done. It's free PR. This is the equivalent, like literally the dunking that they've done with this. Do you remember the E3 with the PlayStation 4?
Mm-hmm.
Where like a few weeks earlier they had announced the Xbox and it was like all this DRM and that, and then at E3 Sony makes a commercial in their hotel room where it's like, here's how you share a game on PS4, and he hands the game over to his friend and he goes, thank you. And that was their PR. That's all they had to do. And that's what this is.
Oh yeah, like this is going to be very interesting to say. And like I said, how this comes out to handling products from Wizards of the Coast in the future, I'm going to tell you if the book's good or not. It's whether you choose to spend your money on it.
And again, like that, and that's the thing. The worry is, the fear as a journalist or as a reviewer is my integrity going to be called into question if I review this title, if I'm sent a copy? No, because we're not being paid to review them. We're also not being paid to read a script. We will never promote a review that we have to read a script from.
Yeah, no.
What we are doing is, here is a creative intellectual property that somebody had put out. Somebody put weeks of their time, weeks and months into developing the art, the assets, the creation, the expression. That you'll see that wording a lot, the expression of the property. You're going to review that because you know what? At the end of the day, the creators have nothing to do with what corporations are doing. This isn't a case of the creator saying, hey, you know what would be great? If we could wall up my stuff behind a paywall. They don't want that. They want their games to be played.
Yeah. So
we're going to review it, but it also doesn't mean we're not going to go harder on it. We're not going to go easier on it. It's going to be the same. There just might need to be depending on how the press goes with this and how Wizards of the Coast acts in the future, we might have to have a preface and be like, hey, you've probably seen the news about this. Here is our unbiased review. Just a note.
Yeah. So that'll be doing it for us here at the Nerd News, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net. Coming up, we're going to take a trip to a very unique and special place. You might say the Rock of Eternity, where we shall gain wonderful powers granted to us by the Court of Wizards. Will be the savior of humanity or its destruction. We shall soon be saying.
See, you see, The Rock's got you speechless.
The Rock has got me speechless. We're going to be talking about Warner Brothers Home Entertainment's latest release of Black Adam. So Shazam, here is my review of Black Adam on 4K Ultra HD, Blu-ray, and digital code. We'll be back, guys, right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Black Adam. What have your powers ever given to you? Nothing but heartache.
I was a slave until I died. Then I was reborn a god. My son sacrificed his life to save me. Over fire! Now, I kneel before no one.
Shazam! It is I, Mike the Birdman, and I'm here to talk to you about one of the latest releases from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. I'm talking about the latest 4K Ultra HD release, but this also includes a Blu-ray and a digital code. I'm talking about Black Adam. So, this movie came out late last year, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as the titular Black Adam, sort of the polar opposite to Shazam, both granted their mystical powers from the Court of Wizards, and basically they're badasses that can fly, electrical powers, flying, super strength. You get the idea. And this is sort of the anti-hero story of the DC Extended Universe. And it falls in kind of a weird space, because if you've been following the DC news recently, you know there's been some shake-ups, we shall say, with James Gunn and Safran now kind of leading the charge into changing how the DCEU is going to look going forward. What does that mean for Black Adam? No one's quite sure yet. Negotiations are still ongoing. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So the movie itself is kind of his origin story, how he was a slave who died and then became a god. Now there's this person who's trying to take over his home city of Kahndaq, which is sort of like this other bad guy who's sort of like this demon king. There's this MacGuffin known as the Crown of Sabak, demons, you kind of get the idea. But trying to stop Black Adam from murdering everybody is the Justice Society of America. So that's Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Cyclone, and Atom Smasher. Two of these people I've heard of. Can you guess which ones I'm talking about? That's right, that would be Hawkman, and that would be Dr. Fate. Some pretty big heavy hitters from the DC universe, if you're familiar with some of the DC animated stuff or been reading the comics since, well, like forever. So the movie suffers from a really weird identity crisis, I think. And it doesn't quite know what it wants to be, because this is sort of like an anti-hero villainous story at times. Other times it's a little bit more lighthearted. And tonally, this movie is all over the place. And I can't say that I absolutely hate it, but I can't say that I absolutely loved it either. So it's so weird. This almost seems like a throwback to when superhero movies were starting to find their footing. When you were looking at, you know, stuff like even the 90s Spawn movie or Steel. And I know those are really bad examples, but they tried to tell a different origin story. Whereas, you know, we're stuff we're used to now, like Captain America, the Winter Soldier. We're used to Spider-Man Endgame, or not Endgame, you know, like stuff like that has a little bit more heart and weight to it, stuff that people are taking seriously in the superhero genre. Black Adam is not that. And there are moments where Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he is Teth Adam. He is Black Adam, and he really gives a great performance. And there are other times where he's literally a frame or two away from giving the people's eyebrow or dropping a rock bottom on somebody, and it completely breaks the immersion. The most interesting part about this movie is the supporting cast. Having Hawkman and Dr. Fate, great characters. Like, I honestly wanted to see a movie about the Justice Society of America more so than I wanted to see Black Adam's story. But that's not to say Black Adam's story isn't interesting. I just don't know if it's a feature-length story that needed to be told on screen in the DCEU. This could have very easily been a really high-budget DC animated thing and then introduce Black Adam onto live action later. But there are special features on this disc which kind of talk about how the original script for this did feature Shazam and Black Adam. And I kind of agree. Both characters do deserve their own movie, but it's how do you bring these characters and give them life and giving them the full breadth of a storytelling experience without taking away from either. And this did make me a more bigger fan. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm a bigger fan of the Black Adam character than I was originally. Like, my first experience with Black Adam was DC animated stuff, and I think Injustice 2, if I remember correctly, which is the video game from a couple of years back. So the movie itself, I'm gonna say it's worth watching only because we're starting to see the DCEU in its current incarnation begin to wind down, as this is the last canonical appearance of Henry Cavill as Superman. He does show up in a mid-credit scene, and I don't consider that a spoiler considering it was on social media all over the place a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't seen it by now, I'm kind of surprised. To talk about this disc's strengths, or to talk about its special features, there's a lot of them. Some of them are about 10 to 15 minutes, some of them are less than 5, but there's quite a number of them, and that's something where I think this disc really excels. I really hope Warner Brothers continues to put the money and effort into giving us these supplementary extras, because I think doing so for a movie like this and any comic book movie, you're really doing it a service by giving people added value and added knowledge. Like I said, I really think that's where this movie really kind of stands out. Now, can I recommend this movie to buy? This is where it gets a little bit tricky. If you want to see the movie itself, you can stream this movie on HBO Max if you happen to live in the United States. You can stream it on Crave if you happen to live in Canada, or you can buy it off your favorite digital service. If you're a fan of the DCEU as it stands, you probably want to pick this up because this is going to be closing of a chapter fairly soon, and what happens with Gunn and his team going forward, who knows? Are they going to involve Dwayne Johnson in the future? I don't know, and nobody really does unless they're at a boardroom at Warner Brothers Discovery literally right this minute. And it's also, like I said, a fairly good disc in terms of what it offers in special features. I mean, picture and audio quality wise, I watched this on an Xbox Series X. It looked really good. It was really cool in my 3D headphones. Fantastic stuff. I've never had a problem with anything Warner Brothers puts out in that regard. So my advice here, final verdict, is if you want to see the movie only, just stream it. It's probably not worth owning. It's definitely worth an afternoon watch if you got nothing else going on. But if you're a hardcore comic book fan, odds are you've already bought this. And I'm going to recommend it on the strength of its special features. There is enough there. There is some really interesting stuff where they talk about some of the technology that was used in this movie and how they shot it. And it's very clear that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson really wanted this to be something special. It just didn't pan out the way that he wanted to in theaters. So that is Black Adam 4K Ultra HD with Blu-ray and digital code, coming to us from Warner Brothers.
They're heroes.
I feel the pain in my city wherever I go.
They're villains. Heroes don't kill people.
Well, I do.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Thank you, Adam Teth, for protecting us from the Intergang and everybody else. All right, guys, so we are back here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. It's time to dive into the strange and most unusual things that have happened in this first week of 2023. We begin our story with local broadcaster, local national broadcaster, CBC.ca. Fugitive cows in Quebec captured after months on the run. The last cows of part of Quebec's Runaway herd of Holsteins were captured and returned home Saturday, said the local union for agricultural producers, UPA Maurice. The herd of more than 20 dairy cows have been on the run since July, where they were spooked by a summer thunderstorm on a dairy farm near Saint Barnaby, close to Trois River, Quebec, which I think is close to where my sister lives. Since then, they have been contentedly grazing wherever they liked and wreaking havoc on farmers' fields nearby. But starting last month, UPA Maurice led the efforts to capture the cows. At the beginning of December, an enclosure was set up with the goal of attracting the cows with food, said Jean-Sébastien Dubé, Director of Communications for the Fédération de l'Epuis de Maurice. With a feeding point inside the enclosure, the goal was to attract the animals inside of the enclosure and that they adopt different eating routines, said Dubé. Adding to the weather was on their side. The winter, bringing in cold temperatures and snow, covered up other possible food sources. The food was less available on the ground, so it made the cows more dependent on the food we were offering. In December, they captured 4 cows. Now, the UPA said they have recovered 13 cows and 2 calves that were born during the cows' time on the land. Dubé says almost 20 helped capture the animals. Jean-Yves Saint-Renard, the mayor of Saint-Sever, said he was happy to hear that the UPA Maurice effort, along with the help of Quebec's agricultural minister, was a success. Quote, my first reaction that I was very happy and pleased about the situation, but also with a bit of caution, said Saint-Renard, adding that he wants to make sure that I didn't miscount the Holsteins. Quote, we asked them to leave the enclosures up until Wednesday, thinking there could be 2 or 3 more cows in the case of an error in our calculations. Some people had said there were 24 cows, others had said 27 to 28. Dubé says the animals seem to be in good shape and are back on the farm. They were experts in bovine production who visited the farm before the return of the animals to ensure optimal conditions, and since their return, they are adapting super well, said Dubé. Their owner, Pierre Lapointe, a dairy producer in St. Barnabé, had said the cows are being kept in the barn so they can get used to other animals. He expects they will be able to return to the fields next summer once they are used to the fences and herd life. The cows' adventures may have seemed heroic or amusing to the public, but Saint-Renard says it was quite serious for local farmers. He estimated the fugitive cows caused tens of thousands of dollars in damage as they trampled or ate crops under the cover of darkness. When it comes to corn, they'll eat the top half of it and leave the bottom half, and then the rain goes inside of it, so a crop is completely lost. He says around 7 farms contacted him near the end of October about the situation, but the village, a population of about 812, initially couldn't help because it involved private property. When animals stay on private property, we as a municipality cannot intervene, said Saint-Renard. Around the last week of October, we started asking questions and we intervened once they realized they were going on the road. Although the next step was to contact local government organizations such as Quebec's agriculture minister and the Ministry of Forest, Fauna and Parks. Saint-Renard said the city received conflicting replies about whose jurisdiction covered the cows that were running wild. The capture of the cows comes after a failed mission in October involving Saint Titir cowboys. What the fuck? Saint-Renard said the mission was a plan Z, a last resort with a crew working a 12-hour-long day. They had lentis barriers, which measure 6 feet so the cows don't jump over it, and 8 cowboys and a drone operator. We were well equipped. Although it looked like the cowboys had triumphed, the cows had successfully corralled into the pen. One managed to escape. From there, everything went south, and the herd was on the loose again. They gathered in the cornfield, into the woods, and we lost them. He says the community is happy the situation is now under control. One of Saint-Renard's primary concerns was how the cows posed a major risk to drivers. Right now, there is no more danger. The cows aren't there, and we are returning to normal.
I've heard of stories like this in the South.
Yes,
like in Kentucky and that, where they'll go missing, and it's like, well, how did they go missing? Well, like the mountains, Appalachia.
I seem to recall growing up, because I grew up in rural Ontario, you would hear about people's cows going missing, horses going missing. The weirdest encounter I ever had with a farm animal, I was probably about maybe 8 or 9 years old, and I was just up the street at my friend Marty's house. One of their horses walked inside the house, and we didn't know how to get it out of the front hallway. I left before that situation could be resolved, so presumably it went okay.
There.
Yeah.
Presumably he's still there.
But yeah, and I remember
they just built the rest of the house around the horse.
I seem to recall cows getting loose a bunch over in like Europe. You always hear about it in like Scotland. You like hear about it, but
it's like what's going on? Well, we can't go downtown because the goats got free, and you're like, what? and they're angry. You hear stuff like that happening in the Highlands.
I always hear about one of the things that happened at my wife's university she went to is there was a sign about gooses. They're like, and I remember this clear as day because we went up there at one point during the summer and the sign was still there. And it said something, do not open this door, goose will attack you. And
that's like when I used to go like up north to different like Algonquin Park and camps and that, and there'd be times where we would go with like my aunt and we'd go into like the little town that's outside there, and they're like they'd have on like the radio as we're going up there. She'd be listening, be like, well, we can't go into town. I'm like, why? Well, there's some moose out. And I'm like, what's the big deal? She's like, yeah, they're like kicking in doors.
Yeah,
and
it's
like,
true.
And it's like, what? It's like, yeah, they kicked in the general store door and knocked it down. And apparently it's kind of angry. So we can't go into town till tomorrow or until like rangers find where the moose went. And I'm like, what's the big deal? And then you go camping and then you see them outside. You're like, oh, you're 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
You're 7 feet tall and weigh 900 pounds. And you're basically a deer on steroids.
There was another story that we didn't cover this week, but it happened in the last week of December, maybe first week of January, how a bear wandered into a convenience store. And there was a viral photo that showed a Canadian lynx, which is like a big cat up here in Canada, walking through an A&W drive-through, just hanging out. So wild animals, man.
Got to get that mushroom mama burger.
Hey, it definitely knows good eats.
Now, as far as this goes, locally here, yes, we got 500,000 people, and yes, it's a city. We're not like a huge metropolis, but we're getting there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But growing up, like, we've gotten like 150 or 200,000 more people in the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like around 1999, 2000, we still had a lot of Mennonites that would come into town on their horse and buggy. Now they can't because of the monorail system and there's new bylaws. You cannot have horse and buggy in town anymore, but that was a regular occurrence. Like I worked at a Sobeys where they had a bike rack on the front and on the side of the building, they had a spot to tie your horses up. And like this is in modern day, right? Well, it was very often where you'd be walking around and you'd be like, oh shit, one of the horses got loose, and they'd be just walking down King Street, like the main city. You're like, what's going on? Horse got loose from a horse and buggy. And then it's like, you got to chase them down, but not spook them. And it's like, that was a regular occurrence. Now, if you're in town here, if you're new to the town in the last 15, 20 years, that would be like, you'd have your mouth open, like, what is going on? But like, when I was growing up here in the 90s, like, you'd be like, yeah, the horse got out. And I imagine it was probably even more like that for you up north.
Oh, yeah. Like we had horses, cows, chickens, all sorts of weird things would get out.
Yeah. Turkeys got out here too. You used to see wild turkeys running through like the main city.
Oh, yeah. Like I remember, actually, I went for a drive this past summer and me and Blair had to slow down to let the turkeys cross the road because we were just cruising out near Elmira.
Oh, well, like my mom's house, like, have you driven by my mom's place?
Yeah.
Maybe you have. Okay. So her backyard neighbor, not the one right behind her, but like on a diagonal from her behind her, I was there and I'm like, what is that sound? The one day. And then we realized they own a bunch of chickens. This is a city. And I'm like, what? They have a chicken coop. And it turns out you're allowed to own chickens if you have enough property. It's not like a huge property. Like this is like in the core of the city. They have chickens. And I'm like, what? Like, how can they have them? As long as they keep the pens clean, they can have so many in town.
There's actually a chicken coop that I pass when I drive to the grocery store, and it's a place you can just sit on, but there's a chicken coop underneath it.
Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't think you could have that in the city. But it's like, yeah. And I'm like, why do they have the chickens? Like, they don't eat the chickens, right? And like, they're not pets. They're like free eggs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, so they literally like they have them because they get like fresh eggs every day, and then like every once in a while they get a nice dinner.
Yeah.
but I was like, holy shit, because you'd be out there, I'm like, there's no fucking way in a city our size. It's like, yep, chickens are like all these things. You can't have certain wild animals, you can't have livestock except chickens, as long as your backyard property is big enough.
Yeah. So our next story is interesting, and Alex and my sister sent this to me within the last day or so.
Great minds think alike.
Clearly. So Edward Norton, so the Hulk and the guy from Fight Club, has learned he's related to the real-life Pocahontas, his 12th great-grandmother. Edward Norton has
so as I said off air, he legit has more claims to the land of North America than I do.
Yeah. So Edward Norton has learned that the real life Pocahontas, the daughter of a 17th century Native American chief, is his 12th great grandmother. The revelation came about on Tuesday's episode of Finding Your Roots, a PBS genealogical history show. According to CNN, historian and host Henry Louis Gates Jr. addressed the family rumor, confirming the family connection to the historical figure who supposedly saved Captain John Smith from execution after welcoming English settlers to the United States in the 17th century. You have a direct paper trail, no doubt about it, connection to your great-grandmother and the great-grandfather John Rolfe and Pocahontas, Gates told Norton. Gates cited the documents showing Pocahontas died 3 years after marrying Rolfe on April 5th, 1614 in Jamestown, Virginia, during the life of William Shakespeare. Rolfe died around March 1622. It just makes you realize what a small piece of the whole human story you are, Norton said after hearing the news. Norton researched his own family history before appearing on Finding Your Roots, which revealed Norton's third great-grandfather, John Winstead, owned a family of slaves. The father, 55, and mother, 37, had 5 daughters.
Is this going to balance out the scales for him a little bit? You find out it's like, oh, we were slave owners, but I'm also related to Pocahontas.
Yeah. So
it's like does it balance? Please let it balance, because you know if he didn't find out he had slave ownership in his family, and he just found out he was Pocahontas and he's an actor, guarantee you, guess who starts showing up on APTN movies? It's all Graham Greene, Wes Studi, Keanu Reeves, and now Edward Norton. Because it counts, right?
The father, age 55, and mother, age 37, had 5 daughters, age 4, 6, 8, 9, and 10. When you read slave age 8, you just want to die, said the Glass Onion actor. The short answer is these things are uncomfortable, and you should be uncomfortable with them, he further expressed about that part of his ancestry. It's not a judgment on you in your own life, but it's a judgment on the history of this country, and it needs to be acknowledged first and foremost, and that it needs to be contended with. The premiere episode of Finding Your Roots Season 9 also traced Ticket to Paradise actress Julia Roberts' lineage. So that is really interesting. I mean, you would be surprised what you can find on these genealogical websites. I mean, I've told the story before. That's how I found my sister.
We've done our family history, and as far as we can tell, I thought I was 50% German and I guess 40% Italian, and the rest was Austrian, English, that sort of mix. Turns out I'm 75% German, because my grandma on my dad's side, which is the Italian side, we thought that she was a little bit English and a little bit Austrian and then a little bit Italian. Turns out it's on her side, it's 75% Austrian, which is technically was part of Germany at the time, yada, yada, yada. So, and there's not really any English there at all. So it's oh, so I'm 75% German. Anyway, the Italian side of the family never owned any slaves. Ever, and first of all, that side of the family came over here in the 1920s. So no chance to. And as far as we can tell, back in Italy, they weren't big landowners or anything. They were peasant to middle class. So okay, no slave stuff there. At least not back to the Roman times, maybe. Which that's far enough back that you don't have to feel guilty when you're talking 2,000 years. It's okay. You're disconnected enough. German side, I was oh god, no Nazis, except one guy married into the family who was actual SS member, and we found out he died officially by, in quotes,
firing
suicide.
Oh,
suicide, but it was suicide with a bullet to the back of his head.
Ugh.
Which means when the war was over and they were supposed to surrender, apparently he didn't want to surrender, and his underlings did, and he suicided, in quotes. So anyway, but he was married into the family and he didn't have any kids, so fuck him anyway. But outside of that, no Nazis in the family, directly with the party, right? You had to serve in the war, whatever. But and I was okay, did we own any slaves or anything like that? Any of the German side? It's Oma's side, she lived on the Frisian Islands, which is the north. It was originally Danish, and then it became this. Her family is Vikings. We can trace back to 1700 something on the island, because before that there was no Christianity there. They were full on Vikings. So it's okay, not there. And then on Opa side it was Frankfurt. No, and then we find out there was a barony. Like apparently we were barons. And so we might have had not slaves, but might have had indentured servants at one point, like 200 and some odd years ago. And then the reason we're no longer barons is my family gambled the title away in a game of cards.
Oh, good times.
Yes. So as far as I can tell, no slaves. So I can I wash my hands? Can I at least like give myself a round of applause that I don't have to worry that at least in the modern era of slavery, my families were not that terrible.
I think you got out all right.
As far as colonizers go, can I get a pass, please? All of my family arrived between 1920 and 1952. Is that okay?
I think you miss out on this one, so not too bad.
I missed out on the really bad stuff. So I feel bad for what our people have done, but like, I don't have any connection to what happened to Pocahontas. So I'm okay.
Yeah, you are good. So yeah, like honestly, folks, I really invite you to check out some of those ancestry sites. If you are curious, you might be surprised what you may find, but
well, and they run the sales. Like usually they're like $100 and some odd. Sometimes they're like $50. And you know what? Just to find out some interesting stuff about your history, you know, it might be worth doing it. My brother did it. And that's how I found out that, you know, we're 75% German. And we also found out that we're not at risk for dementia or Alzheimer's, you know, through our genetics. Only through if you're like a big drinker, you can become like that. But like, we're not at risk for that. And you find out like some health risks that you might not know.
Yeah. So always be willing to check into this sort of thing. You might very well be surprised. So yeah, look it out. Okay.
But seriously, Mike, how long do you think it takes till he does a movie where he plays a Native American?
I hope he never does.
I hope he never does, but he's also a conceited Hollywood actor, even if he's more humble than a lot of the other ones. How long does it take before he does a social justice movie about the plight of the Native people?
You know what? If he wanted to lend his star power to helping people, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, you know what? I will give an exception. I don't want him to act or direct it. If he's a producer that helps put up money for it, sure.
Yeah, exactly. That is the condition, in which case I'm usually good to go. All right, guys. So let's do with our final story. Alex found this, and these are denied vanity license plates for the year 2022 in Oregon. These are released by the DMV. I'm just going to read a couple here.
You read a few, and I'll scroll through to a few pages in because some of these are great.
So, LFT NUT, so left nut. Let me see. Where's another good one? iCup.
How about
shitbox?
How about some wop?
Yeah, like
some wet ass.
Oh,
brr.
Yeah.
Up yours.
Bitchin, spelled BTCH1N. We also got EATADK, so eat a dick.
Booby.
My favorite is this one, shitbox, spelled 5HTBO0X.
There's hentai with a 1.
Evidently, you can't use the word brood or spazzed.
I know why that is.
Okay.
Brood, I'm not sure. Brood might be because they might relate it to like a slur to like
fart, maybe
black people, or like when somebody's thinking that they're like you're like subhuman. You know what I mean?
Oh, gross.
But the other one was spaz.
Yeah.
That is not a big deal to you or I. I believe in England
it means something.
That's a term for, pardon me, for like retarded person.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Like where here the bad term would be, oh, what a retard. Like that was the old term we would use.
Yeah.
They would say, what a spaz.
Oh.
And for us that doesn't, like, for us to be like spaz, be like, oh, you're just gone a little crazy for like it's like a legit big bad deal there.
See, I always heard that phrase in like kids cartoons.
Yeah, they would have to redub them in England.
Oh wow.
So like it, you know how it's like how fanny here means butt, but there it means vagina.
Oh dear.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's one of those things. But yeah, like that spastic. I did not know that till very recently.
Oh.
But like if you go there and be like, oh, he's spazzing out, they will stare at you like, oh my god, you've got turds hanging out of your mouth. Why would you say that to somebody?
Yeah. Another one that I find kind of funny is fuck you, spelled FCKY0U.
Oh yeah.
Soy boy, which is one I've heard before. Okay, I get that.
There's fart, PHRT.
Yep. MILF 18. You can't use that. SSXY 69. Porn star spelled PRNSTR.
Now, interestingly, there's one that's fuck cancer, but you can't use it because of the word fuck.
You can't use the word midget, but I get that.
But what if you are a little person and you wanted to use it ironically?
Yeah, like you should be able to do that, but I guess some people may not get that, and I get that, so that's fine. Yo WTF, I get that. You can't use iCup, moonshine, MONSHN, orgasm, so 0RCASM.
I like somebody who went with full on PP.
PP. And final one from me is smile pig, spelled SMILPG.
Whiskey is on there. Poopy, chubs.
You can't use ass or cream pie. That makes sense.
What if your business is making like cream pies?
Well,
I guess
you're gonna have to get some kind of a decal, I guess.
Let me see here. I'll look up for if there's one. Tooted,
yep.
Gypsy is there now. See, that I didn't know was as big of a slur as it is now. But let's see here.
And some
ass man.
Yeah,
ass man is great. See, if I was a proctologist, I would want a funny one like that.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, guaranteed somebody would steal that off you the second they saw it.
And somebody was creative and put vibrator.
One that I saw was Chub and Poopy and BYOB.
Oh, yeah. Bourbon. A lot of different alcohol names. I noticed like a lot on there. But yeah, and think about this. All of these that we listed, there's 7 pages. That's just Oregon.
Yeah, so you can imagine what the New York could be like.
Here's a final great one. Ass itch. But it's spelled AZZICH. Ass itch.
Oh, God. And here's one that I find funny because I only found out what this word or what this phrase meant a year ago. You're a thought. So UATH0T. Thought stands for that hoe over there. Evidently.
Oh, really? See. I thought that was associated with like the whole basic bitch stuff.
It is kind of, and it's language and verbiage I certainly don't understand or use because I'm not a 15-year-old girl. But
you're not a 15-year-old girl trying to be a tough street kid.
Yeah, it's like, guys, really just stop. So anyway, that's
wait.
Oh, God.
Somebody has Red Rocket.
Oh my God. Thank you, America. You never cease to amaze me.
Oh, Oregon. We're gonna have to see if more of these come up. I think this is the 2nd or 3rd year that Oregon published them.
I think so. So coming up here as our final review of the show, we're going to take a look at a title coming to us from Film Chest. Alex will be taking a look at that, and then we're going to tell you a couple stories to round out the end of the show, what you can expect for us coming up for the rest of this month. And we will be back, guys, right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
As I record this, we are currently on our winter, Christmas, holiday, hiatus, whatever you want to call it, where we take about 4 to 5 weeks off to celebrate Christmas, decompress, as well as get stuff prepped for the new year and come back into things reinvigorated. I've also, right now, as I'm recording this, have come down with a pretty bad case of the flu, which I am fighting through to get this recorded. But, what has helped me is our friends at Film Chest sent a review copy of Blonde, which is a 3-disc DVD set on Marilyn Monroe stories. Because we know that there's been the big budget production biopic that just, I think it just came out. Either just came out or it hasn't come out. I have not seen it yet. But what this is a collection of previous movies made about her, either a biopic, it's a documentary, there's like a fictionalized biopic, a dramatic feature, an exploitation feature, as well as a documentary and a bunch of other special features. It's basically everything up until this point that has been produced as far as a TV movie, direct-to-video movie, or theatrical movie on Marilyn Monroe, all in one box set with an MSRP of about $25 US. So Canada, depending on Amazon and that, you're looking at probably 30, 35, somewhere in there. Might be on sale. It's the kind of thing where they'll put it out for Boxing Week sales or specials like that. Now, what's interesting is this runs the gamut of time periods from stuff produced in the late 70s until 2001. Now, the stories that are included, I've watched. I ended up watching 3 of them so far. I haven't watched all the bonus material yet, but I'm going to get to that because it is interesting. But there is Blonde, which is a movie from 2001. It's a 2-part biopic, 165 minutes. So you're getting a fair amount of time out of that. Marilyn and Me, which was a dramatic feature from 1991, which is about 100 minutes long, so standard feature length. Goodbye Norma Jean from 1976. That's the exploitation feature. It's 96 minutes. That's the one I had heard of before, and I had seen, like, as I was watching it, I'm like, I think I've seen this, even though I couldn't remember any of it. It had that feel in my head. Now, what was also included with the bonus features is there's a documentary from 1967 and a bunch of other things with it. Like, they've crammed everything on here. Visual quality wise, pretty good. As far as the quality of each individual movie and feature, it's a little over the place when it comes to like cinematic quality, only because some of it's embellished, some of it's made up, some of it's got a clear agenda behind it. But they're all interesting takes, and you get bits and pieces from each that are very useful to get the background on who she was. As far as, like I said, video quality for a standard def DVD release, pretty solid. Not too much macro blocking. I didn't see like too much blurry, or it wasn't so blurry. I was a little concerned it might be because of the length of some of it, but it's encoded in such a way that these were interlaced. Some of them were interlaced videos to begin with, so they look pretty decent. On my 65-inch TV, it was looking a little rough, a little blurry around the edges, a little 360p on YouTube, if you know what I mean. But then watching it, I went, okay, I'll switch to the bedroom because I'm not feeling so great. And I watched it on my 50-inch TV, which is mounted on the wall farther away. And that looked just fine. And I went, okay, so it's one of those things where, you get diminishing returns when you're watching on a much, much larger screen, closer up with this kind of a release. But what I ended up doing was I popped it in my computer, opened up my DVD player on the computer, and I ended up watching it on one side of the screen, and on the other side of the screen is where I was reading and doing emails and stuff. So it was actually really good companion pieces where I could watch me immersed, for a few moments at a time, or I could just sort of hear and observe through osmosis. And I had a pretty good time with it. I think it's a really good value, $25, and you get a heck of a lot of stories on here. If you're a fan of her work, it's probably worth picking up. It's a good companion piece for the newer picture. And it's something that now that I'm done with it, I'm going to hand it over to my mom and my grandma, who are going to absolutely, be absorbed in it, because this is the kind of picture, like, if you've got somebody in your life that's over 60, this is the kind of stuff that they're going to be super duper into. And I'm glad that they didn't just piecemeal this out into like 3 separate releases, that they put it all together into one box set for a pretty decent price. Good on Film Chest for that, and I think Blonde is a really good set you might want to check out.
All right, guys. Well, that is the first show of 2023 in the can, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net. So, like I said, me and Alex will be returning to Loose Cannon along with Aaron, doing. I think we're going to be reviewing King of New York and McBain this week, which I believe is
which is not the Simpsons movie,
which I thought it was. So yeah, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be doing. We've got a bunch of shows that are pitched that are really easy for me and Alex and Aaron to record. I know JT and I are talking about some really easy TWIG Sunday funny stuff, because there's been a lot of stuff that's happened in comic book movies. We've got Wakanda Forever comes out next month physically on 4K Blu-ray and everything.
I missed that one. Was that one good?
I really liked it. It's maybe, in my opinion, about 20 minutes too long, but I think,
because I still haven't seen that or the Eternals.
It's hard to recommend Eternals.
I'm gonna have to do a bum rush full weekend where I watch all the superhero movies I missed, because I haven't seen a superhero movie since
Spider-Man, maybe?
No, since Thor.
Oh wow, yeah. So it has definitely been a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got just a lot of good stuff coming up here on the site. I know, as for an interview, and this is something really fun. I started listening to a podcast over the holidays called Welcome to Primetime, and that's a Freddy's Nightmares podcast hosted by Henrik Kuto and his friend Dave. They are living in Springwood, Michigan, or not Michigan, Ohio, which is Freddy Krueger's hometown.
I love how it wasn't that you mixed up like an M state. It's a completely different state.
Yeah, completely different states. So
it's not like you went like Massachusetts or Michigan or Maine. It's no, doesn't even sound the same.
Yep. For some reason I had Aaron on the brain.
That is we just had a full Birdmanism.
Yep, I totally lost it there. So
I love it.
So
I love it, and if he listens to this, he'll love it too. Maybe he'll just announce himself as from a different state now.
So yeah, we are going to be talking about horror movies, Freddy Krueger, and some other cool stuff. In fact, Henrik might be willing to come up to Canada to record a Freddy commentary with us here on the show, which
that would be interesting.
That would be really, really fun. It would be tremendously funny. If you listen to their podcast, Welcome to Primetime, Freddy Krueger occasionally shows up on the episode and they'll play the bitch button, which is my favorite gag on their show. So Freddy is just as offensive as he was in the 1980s. So just kind of bracing yourselves there. But yeah, so I'll be talking with Henrik on Tuesday. That interview should be out later on this week. Loose Cannon should be out also. Aaron has more Earth versus Soup that he's going to be doing. Future Imperfect. We're going to be doing that.
Yeah. I have to get in touch with Aaron. Probably either this week or early next week we'll record our discussion on last year's Trek and Review.
Yeah, so that'll be fantastic. And then once those guys do last year's Trek and Review, I will be coming back and we're going to be talking about maybe just different sci-fi franchises that have just kind of gone by the wayside. I pitched a bunch of ideas during the holidays. We've got a bunch of really cool stuff for Loose Cannon we're looking forward to. We're going to talk about more Andy Sedaris. I want to do something on Jean-Claude Van Damme. And you know what, Alex? I've always wanted to know more about the guy from the Police Academy movie. So I would love to do a salute to Steve Guttenberg at some point.
Oh, I thought you were going to be like Michael Winslow. I'm like, really?
You know what? I'd like to know more about him too.
Guttenberg has been relegated to direct-to-video movies recently.
So
he was on, I think, this week's Goldbergs.
Yeah, because he plays like one of the teachers or something.
Talk about a show that has no soul anymore.
Which makes me so sad. But hey, 10 seasons, what do you expect?
10 seasons, a major actor having a dispute where they fire him and he gets kicked out of the show. Another major actor passing away, unfortunately. The writing getting very cheeseball after they made the spinoff show. All the good writers went to the spinoff show and they didn't return when that show got canceled. And then you have the creator of the show being pushed out of his own show and no longer having any video ties to the actual show. So it is a shell of its former. I haven't watched any in like 2 years.
I've watched it, but only out of an obligation. Plus, I really like Wendy McCubbin.
Obligation. It's almost a slap in the face to Adam by watching it because he has nothing to do with it anymore.
It's really unfortunate too, because I really used to look forward to it. And even the other show that I like...
First 5 years, fantastic. Everything else was a slow decline.
Yeah, it's one of those shows. I think they should end it when probably this season or next. But if it makes money,
I can't. Not really. It's just that they did a big budget cut by cutting out some of the actors, and that's how they're able to continue. Like, I'm not trying to shit on it. It's just it has become a Chuck Lorre style show,
which is unfortunate.
With the really bad laugh track and the like. Here's how every joke in the last 5 years has been on that show. Hey, I'm going to make some reference to something that happened in the past or something. And it would be terrible if this happens. 2 seconds later, the other actor does exactly what they just said would be terrible if it happened. And then they all laugh about it. And they all go, oh, I know. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Everything with the brother. is terrible now.
Which is unfortunate because I really think that Troy Gentile is a fantastically funny guy.
Okay, the actors are all great. Terrible material.
Yeah,
the writing since season 5 has been basically all of the good writing. When they made that spinoff show,
Schooled, yeah,
it was actually really good.
Schooled was amazing,
and all the good writers went there with the actual unique funny jokes, and it's like nobody returned. The show quality went down and never went up again on the main show.
The best people on Goldberg's, I think, is Wendy. She's fantastic. Tim Meadows.
Of course.
And Adam or Sean Gambrone is doing what the best he can.
Whenever what's his name from Reno 911 shows up, the one that he plays, but he won't be in it nearly as much because he works at the furniture store with the dad who's now dead.
Yeah, so
and he was great as the friend sidekick.
Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen? I guess we'll have to wait and see. I mean, maybe we'll have to do a loose cannon or a special, because I know me and Alex were talking about this, and this will be our last point to bring up. We're talking about bringing back, because we tried to do it last year, but timing and health issues just didn't allow for us to do it, doing a quarterly topic show. I'd love to talk about sitcoms that may stand the test of time, because we've had the sitcoms since the late 50s.
Yeah, you could do a topic where it's what would be what are your top 3 sitcoms from each decade?
Ooh, that's tough.
And then you pick one to be what you consider to be the worst of each decade.
Oh man, that'll be really hard because you've seen a lot more than me. I know my top 3 of all time.
Okay, pick your 2 best from each decade.
Okay.
And you can look at a list, your 2 best and the 1 worst.
Okay. I think we'll do that.
That I think you can do, because it's a lot harder to think of your favorite. Usually you'll have 1 or 2.
Yeah, because my favorite sitcom of all time used to be the Goldbergs, not anymore. I would say a tie between early Community and Arrested Development pre-Netflix stuff.
What, not Two Broke Girls?
Or Reba. God, I hate that show. I've got a story.
I almost barfed when you said Reba.
Fucking hate that show.
Reba. That show came on TV. I'll tell you this one little quick story.
Okay.
That show came on the TV when we were flipping through channels one time. and it was on TV. My brother was watching it like he had nothing else on the cable. And he's like 6 and he's flipping through and he's mesmerized by like the colors and the ridiculousness of it. And I just remember walking by and it was on like country music television or one of those channels, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, "What are you watching?" Or he's like 7 or 8, and I'm like 12 or 13. What are you watching, Reba? And I was like, and I said it out loud, and I got in trouble because I wasn't thinking what I was saying. I was like, on the fuck channel, and my brother's like doesn't understand what the words are, but my mom hears like, Alex, what did you say? He's watching Reba on the country channel. And she goes, that's not what you said. And I went and I called it the channel because only people that just watch it.
Oh, God.
And this is me at 12 or 13, right? It's like, and I was like, I got big shit. And then my mom comes in and she goes, turn that shit off to my brother. Because it was so bad. It was that and my brother also used to watch, like he's like 6 or 7. He used to watch the fucking show with Chuck Norris that was the neighbor on the sitcom. What was that stupid religious one? Yes Dear or something.
Yeah, that's it. Yes Dear. I remember that one.
We'll have a time talking. Anyway, that's the story. And I feel like I'm sorry for anybody out there if I've offended you by saying what I'm saying. That was 12 or 13-year-old Alex walking in and be like, what are you watching on this fuck channel? Because like that channel had nothing but hillbilly shows and music on it, right? Like that's how my thoughts were when I was 12 or 13. But the look of the mortified look on my brother's face, because he didn't know those words and how they should be combined. And I felt bad afterwards, but I got big shit for saying that. But anyway, I'll tell you my other quick story that I was going to say at the beginning of the show.
Yep.
And that is also involving my mother, who used to be a YouTuber. We're talking like 2005, 2006 era. She was invited like to the original YouTube convention in Toronto, like by letter in the mail from them, because she was like not like a super popular channel, but she was like, before they had networks, she was part of like a 12-person pen pal vlog making thing for old people, where every day they would all make their vlogs and talk to each other. Like before you could have multiple people on the same conference, like you'd make your video and be like, hey, I'm talking to so-and-so, and that you'd address certain individual YouTubers, and then you'd put the video out. They would watch it and make their reply video. Like that's what YouTube was way before the copyright system or anything, right? So she used to do that, and she had a few videos when she did like some like biography stuff on some of her like old-timey movie star people that nobody cares about. But she has like a few videos with like 50 or 100,000 views from way back in the day. And she's like, I'm retired now and I want to start making YouTube videos again. She hasn't made one in like 5 or 6 years. And she goes, Alex, could you help me make my video? I don't know how to do, like, she used to make them with like a digital camera that she would set up and talk into, and then it would plug into the computer, or she'd use a webcam. And she's like, I don't know how to do that now. How do I do it with my phone? And like, she wanted to see if she could like make it with her phone. I was like, okay, I'll help you. That's what I figured she was going to ask. And no, that wasn't what she was asking. It was, Alex, can you come over so I can sit you down, put a camera on you, and put makeup on you? And I went, long pause. No. Why? And she's like, I just want to put makeup on you and put it on YouTube. And I'm like, your idea for coming back after years off YouTube is to exploit your son? And she's like, how is it exploiting? I'm like, I am a like 500-pound big guy who has an online presence, but not like this. And your idea is, I want to do him up with makeup and make him a princess.
Not good.
How is that? And I'm like, Mom, I've got trans friends. I got friends in every community. Do you think they might go, hey, he's making fun of us or trying to be hypocritical? Like even if the intentions are noble, that's not how it's going to look, because it's not who I usually am on a regular basis. And then she's on the phone and she starts like almost crying. She's like, I don't know what to do. I just wanted to make a video. I don't know why you're mad about it. I'm like, I'm not mad, but you're not exploiting me. She goes, how else am I going to get 1 million people to watch on my first video? And I was like, so you were trying to exploit me. And then I just hear tears, and then I hear laughter, cackling laughter. And I'm like, were you serious? She goes, yeah, I was serious. I was hoping that you wouldn't think about it and just do it. And I'm going, Mom, what the and then she's like, but I do just want to put makeup on you. And I'm like, okay, here's the compromise. I will come over because I know you're upset and you don't know what to do with your life now that you're retired. You can put all the makeup on me that you want, but we're not taking pictures of it. I don't care. I'm secure in my masculinity. I can do all that. We're not. And she goes, and I said, and you're not hiding a camera at the side of the room. And she goes, how do you think so low of me? And I'm like, did you just hear anything you just said to me for the last 5 minutes? This is my mother. So she might be coming back to YouTube, but it won't be to exploit her son for quick views.
Yeah, no.
Her idea, and I'm like, what's the rest of your content going to be? And her idea was, it doesn't matter. I've already got the 1 million people that watched your video. And I'm like, that is so evil, Mom. And she's like, oh, I'll think of something else.
And that is how we close out the first show of 2020.
Love you, Mom. Love you, Mom. Love you, Mom. Love the community. I have no problem wearing makeup. Go ahead, put it on. I don't put it on myself, but if you want to put it on me, I have no problem doing that. We'll take pictures and I'll send that to you and Blair, Michael. But that shit stays in the vault.
Yeah, no shit.
Not because I'm not ashamed of it, but it's also, people use a lot of things as ammo online. That's not fun.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, guys, hopefully you have had a fantastic winter vacation.
Oh, by the way, she then asked me, would Michael let me do it to him? No. And I'm like, no. But also, he might let you do makeup as long as it doesn't go online.
Yeah, exactly. As long as it doesn't go online, we'll have a conversation.
And then she's like, I'm like, why don't you just ask Michael and Blair if you can come over and do their makeup for them? They would probably say yes. Blair would probably say yes, but not for online.
Yeah,
no. If you just want to do makeup on a girl, go ahead. And she, okay, I might do that.
Oh, Mama Rishi.
Yeah, she. I think the winter's got her going stir crazy.
A little bit. All right, guys. So we are going to take a final just congratulations, guys, on making it through another year. I'm glad
the year has started out like crap already, but we're going to make it through it. We're going to do it.
We are going to survive until 2024. So once again, guys,
I'd like to survive a lot longer than that. In general, I don't plan on like not surviving past 37.
Yeah, I would like to get into my 50s. So anyway, guys,
I'd like to go a lot farther than that. I'm sorry, dude, that's getting creeping close, right?
Yeah. So anyway, guys, hopefully we will be hearing from you rather soon. Once again, if you want to hit our socials at This Week in Geek on Twitter, feedback at ThisWeekInGeek.net, where Alex replies to it primarily, but you can find me on socials at Birdman Dodd. He's Deathface Twig. All our contact information is on each and every show post. So until next time, folks, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike the Birdman, saying thank you since 2007 for joining us almost each and every week here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. And until next time, folks, for 2023, be excellent to each other. We'll catch you guys again next time right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.